So we have gotten the two worst seasons of Steve Park's career out of the way. Now it's time to go to a middle season, one which was average, not great, not horrible. This is Steve Park's number 3 of his 5 seasons in his Cup Series career. 1999 was his first full-time season in the Cup Series. He ran all 34 races for the first time. He ended up scoring 0 wins, 0 top 5s, 5 top 10s. He led 166 laps throughout the season and got a 14th place finish in points with a 25 average start and a 20.6 average finish. So once again, average for Steve Park. It was good enough to get him top 5 in the standings. And you see on this list, if you look under who the crew chief was, it changes throughout the season. That's where it kind of turns around. It started as a bad season. It turned around midway through the season once they switched to Paul Andrews. We'll get to that a little bit later on in the episode. But of course, it always starts out with Daytona and the Daytona 500. Around the halfway point throughout the race, big crash happens. Steve Park is behind it. He actually gets lifted up off the ground after ramping off a car in front of him. And you can see the just junkyard of cars, the pile of cars that are there with Steve Park. So many cars. He's the yellow car sitting right in the middle of all those cars sitting down the apron. You'll see right here, Dale Jarrett tries to get in front of his teammate. They make some contact. Around goes Jarrett. He spins up into the pack. He actually ends up flipping upside down later on in the crash. But Park is behind it. He's coming in, really has nowhere to go as he and some others are trying to get away. He spins down right there. You see ramps right there. I believe that's off of Jeff Bodine, and he gets up in the air. Luckily, the car comes back down all fours, unlike what happened to Dale Jarrett. But still, Steve Park takes a nasty ride here in the Daytona 500. He actually retires from the race due to, quote, handling issues to the car, as if that didn't have anything to do with the crash at all. Because, I mean, when your car's up off the ground, I'm pretty sure there might be some handling issues, but I think that the main reason was for the crash and not for the handling. See right there, though, Park trying to come into it and miss it. But another look at it. As you see, just as Jarrett gets sideways on the apron, there's really nowhere for anyone to go as he comes back up the racetrack. He'll get Terry Labonte. You actually see Steve come in just a little bit later. Not too much good view of Park coming into it. You'll see a good view here of Jarrett actually getting bounced around, going upside down right there. But Park's going to come in from the right side of the screen, right there, down to the apron. He'll go in that yellow number 1 car, and he'll actually ramp right there off, I believe that's Jeff Bodine, the 60, and that goes out of frame. Then we skip all the way ahead to Bristol, where he starts 43rd during the race. A little bit later on in the race, he's bound with Ken Sherry for a position. Sherry gets to the back of Park and just spins him around right in front of the leaders, and luckily the leaders weren't involved in this, but another bad race at Bristol for Steve Park. We actually say that a lot over his career. Bristol has probably been his worst racetrack during his Cup Series career. We then go ahead to the next race at Martinsville. Early on, I believe it's like lap number 10, a stack-up happens in front of him. Jerry Mayfield is stopped. Park just has to stop behind the 12, and luckily for him, he doesn't make contact with anyone, but he does lose some track position. He actually gets going again. Luckily for him, he doesn't hit anything. You'll see from this replay right here as it happens up in front. You don't really see how it starts, but the 12 is sitting right there, and Park is just behind. He's like, okay, I'm just going to stop here. Doesn't hit anything, keeps his car going straight, and he's good. Then we go to Talladega right after Martinsville, where the big one happens at the front of the field. Stewart and Skinner getting down to the grass. Skinner spins back around into the field. Jeff Gordon right there trying to miss it. He gets collected up right there in front of Steve Park. The one does miss the crash, and Steve Park does stay in the Die Hard 500 here at Talladega. As we look at it, looking down the backstretch, there's Stewart and Skinner getting into a blocking match down to the apron. Into the grass they'll go, and then they come back up the racetrack with nowhere to go for the rest of the field. Gordon right there trying to miss it. He gets out of control doing that. He'll come back up and hit the outside wall pretty hard right there. And then Park, you'll see him emerge down to the inside right there in that yellow Penzo car. He'll get down to the apron. He actually misses the crash. Great job by the one, Steve Park, missing that. And then later on, under green flag pit cycles, Park is down on the apron with an issue, trying to get off the racetrack. No yellow comes out as the one still has a chance to get off the racetrack. Luckily for him, he finds where the opening is. He gets behind the wall. No yellow comes out. But what was the reason for Park and his misfortunes right here? He says it over the radio what happened.
Steve Park just told his crew that the engine is dead. He can't get it to run. He said that what the spotter was saying that it flamed out the exhaust when they try and fire the car up, but he has pulled it behind the wall down there to keep the caution from coming out. But an engine problem for Steve Park.
So engine problems at Talladega take him out of the running at Richmond. All by his lonesome. He spins around, losing some traction there into the outside while he'll go. Brings out a caution flag as soon as Jeff Burton's having issues from the lead. So craziness happened at Richmond there. His best race of the season possibly came in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte. He takes the green flag around just after the quarterway mark of the race. He has the lead. Excuse me. He has the lead. He's off sequence with some pit cycles, so he takes the lead with this restart, and he leads a good amount during this Coca-Cola 600. Before then, he had only led one lap. It was a lap during some green flag pit cycles at Darlington, which he led. Here in the Coca-Cola 600, he ends up leading 84 laps, and had one of the best cars, definitely a top 5 car during the night. But I think the broadcast crew jinxed him with this stat coming up, and the leader at halfway has failed to win the last 5 Coca-Cola 600s. This stat comes up at the halfway point. Park leads at lap 200, lap 201, meaning he's leading at halfway, and they end up jinxing the one of Steve Park. After leading a good majority of the race, he comes off of turn 4, battling for second with Jeremy Mayfield. A lap car trying to get down pit lane, kind of gets up on the racetrack, gets the one a little tight. He gets up in the 12, spins around, and Park's Coca-Cola 600 run ends just after the halfway point. See, his spotter Ty Norris cannot believe that this is happening. They had such a great run going, and then that happens, and Park's night is done. Once again, due to, quote, handling issues. As you look from this replay, as that lap car is trying to get down to the pit lane, he kind of comes up on the racetrack. I believe he gets Park a little tight there, gets up in the side Mayfield, trying to keep it off him. He spins the car around, and Park goes for a ride into the wall. And such a heartbreak for Steve Park. It looked like it was going to be his best Cup Series finish of his career. Looked like it could have possibly been a win if things worked out right, but it ends up in a crashed race car and out of the Coca-Cola 600 early on. But luckily, a few races later at Michigan, he ends up scoring his first top 10 of the 1999 Winston Cup season, and they actually interviewed him after the race.
Well, let's go to a driver who had his career best Winston Cup finish today. He's with Dick Berggren.
Big day. They just finished loading that 6th-place car into the trailer. Steve Parks had a smile on ever since he got out of that thing. How was your day today?
Well, I'll tell you, it was a hot day, but I'll tell you what, running that good, we felt great all day long. And, to have the Pennzoil car finish 6th is just is an honor. I'll tell you what, these guys, they've been working hard. We've had great pit stops all day long, and with the addition of Paul Andrews, he's just done a wonderful job to rally this team to a team that's capable of running in the top 10 in Winston Cup, and we're excited right now.
Long run without a break in that race car. Have you ever run that long without a break?
I don't think so, but we're having so much fun. It was like I didn't even know we didn't have a caution flag, and we just kept making our scheduled pit stops, and we're getting great fuel mileage. And my hat's off to the guys back home. They built a great race car. It's a car they turned around at Pocono to bring here, and we're turning it around and bringing it back to Pocono again. So guys, be ready to work when we get home. And my hat's off to the engine shop too. These guys, they built great horsepower that got good gas mileage, and that's what it's all about at Michigan.
You don't even look tired. Aren't you tired after all this racing today and no break?
Dr. Dick, I'm too excited, man. We finished 6th. I'll tell you, this is great. I'm excited. I'm going to sleep great tonight. And, I'd also like to congratulate Jimmy Johnson and the ASA and Scott Goodyear. They're two of my fellow Pennzoil drivers who won races, and we were trying to pick up a 3-peat today, and we just couldn't do it. We're just going to sell for 6th.
And we congratulate you, Steve Park. Job well done.
And then, just a few races after his first top 10 of the season, at Sonoma early on, barely into the race, he ends up crashing into the tire barriers in a spectacular way. The ESPN didn't catch it as it first happened, so it just looks like he crashed into the tire barriers and somehow got on top of the tires and the barriers right there in a precarious position for sure. But once we look at the replay, we see it was not a normal crash. It was a pretty nasty crash, a pretty wild crash. Park gets sideways in turn 1 and spins into the dirt, then comes up, hits the tire barrier, and it launches the car into the air, up and over one full time, lands back down on all 4 wheels. But a scary crash for Steve Park. Once again, Park known for his scary crashes. This was another scary crash during his career. And then at Loudon, this was actually a very big race for the one team, great perseverance race. A crash happens in front with the 28 and the 6 getting together. They spin around. What isn't seen is right here from this replay. Park actually gets spun sideways. He ends up finishing in the 12th position even after all this happening. Luckily, not much damage occurred to the one right there. And then at Pocono, the pass for the lead, and ultimately the win comes with 33 laps to go. Park, on some strategy, stays on the racetrack to inherit the lead. Leads 6 laps before Labonte, the dominant car, comes flying around to the inside. Labonte takes the lead. Park, though, holds on for an 8th place finish and another top 10 in the season. Once again, Paul Andrews taking over as crew chief for the one team, and it shows like it's paying off right then. And then we skip ahead to Dover, which is within the final 10 races of the season. He ends up finishing 9th. And then a few races later, Charlotte ends up finishing inside the top 10 with a 10th place finish. But then he ends out the season with his best qualifying effort of the season at the Lamar Speedway. He ends up qualifying 2nd behind Kevin LePage, quickly gets down line. But just looking at this, for the first 11 races, it was either it was not Paul Andrews. Andrews takes over at Charlotte, which is where Park's best race of the season came with 84 laps led. Before Charlotte, he was 31st in points. By the time Andrews took over as crew chief, he ends up scoring his first top 10 of the season at Michigan. He ends up scoring a top 10 at Pocono, which later gets followed up with a top 10 at Darlington, a top 10 at Dover, and then a top 10 at Charlotte. Here at Atlanta, he had a pretty good race car. See right here, LePage leads lap number 1. However, quickly, Park is going to take the lead away going down the backstretch. In this Napa 500, the final race of the season, Park leads 72 of the 325 laps run. It doesn't end up with a top 10 finish, but still a 12th place finish, which was pretty normal for the one team at this time of the season. Right there, you can see down the backstretch, the big movement makes it to the outside of LePage. He gets by easily in turns 3 and 4. So Park will actually come off turn 4 and lead the second lap of the race, showing that he has a fast car and a car to be reckoned with here today in the conclusion of the 1999 season. But quickly, LePage gets up to the outside lane, trying to give Mark Martin the inside lane. LePage just finds a great lane in the middle lane, flies around the one of Steve Park right here, and inherits the lead right back away, and Park falls to second after holding off Mark Martin here, battling into turn number 3. The 6 gets behind the 1, but luckily Park is able to hold off and keep second for the time being. A little bit later on in the race, Steve Park leads at the restart because of this great pit stop by his crew. He comes in 3rd, but since he has the number 1 pit stall, he ends up just having the shortest distance to leave pit road. He drops the clutch, gets it going, and the one crew and the one team leaves pit road first, and Steve Park has the lead for the restart, which will come a little bit later on in the race. Right here you see as they come down, green flag is out for Steve Park. So that ends out a pretty decent 1999 season, his first full-time season in Cup, ends with a 14th place finish in the points, ends up setting up for 2 successful seasons in 2000 and 2001. Which one will be number 2 and which one will be number 1, we'll find out just a little bit later on. There's 2000 and 2001 left on Steve Park's career. Arguably the 2 best seasons of Steve Park's career happened in those 2. So 1999 set that up with his first full-time season, once again 14th in points and 5 top 10s on the season. I'll thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the last 2 parts of Steve Park's career, 2000 and 2001.